So the radio wave spectrum, the largest radio wave on the radio wave spectrum is 1,000 feet, and the smallest is 1 millimeter. We're talking the size of the wavelength. The 1 millimeter size wave is so small that it impacts our cellular biology, and it actually absorbs into us, absorbs into everything, because it's such a small wave. It's like a microwave, and that's how microwaves even work. When you heat up your food in the microwave, the small wave is absorbing into the water in your food and heating it, microwaving it. So the largest radio wave is the AM radio wave, which is 1,000 feet in wavelength. And because of its size, it can go great distances. It can actually travel miles and miles off of a mountainside. And imagine that AM radio tower as actually like a massive spotlight. The light is shining so far, and then you can pick up that light on your radios. So that AM radio wave being 1,000 feet in wavelength, it can travel great distances, and it goes right through us, right through everything because of its size. It doesn't impact our cells, doesn't give us cancer and all that sort of stuff. And we don't even have to be right next to the cell tower. They're quite some distances away. The FM wave is 10 feet tall, FM radio wave. The FM wave is harmless. It goes through us, all sorts of stuff like that. The Wi-Fi wave, the Bluetooth, all the technology that we utilize currently, the waves are large enough that they do not impact us severely, and they actually go through walls and humans and trees and water and bugs and bees and all sorts of stuff. But the absolute smallest radio wave is the 1 millimeter size wave. To give you perspective, a penny, the coin, the penny, the copper penny, it's 1.5 millimeters thick. So smaller than the width of a penny is 1 millimeter, and that's the size of this new wave of technology, the 5G. And it's the absolute smallest. It's the smallest radio wave possible for transmission of data, and it doesn't travel very far at all. It actually absorbs into people and clouds and everything. So this talk of 5G satellites, complete disinformation, misinformation, falsehoods, lies, treason. Okay, 5G satellites do not exist. The talk of 6G, 10G, 7G, all these other Gs after 5G, falsehoods, propaganda, lies, misinformation, social engineering. It's disinformation so as to disempower and take away your inspiration, because why fight 5G if 10G is coming? There's no such thing as 10G. There's no such thing as 6G. It might be called that, but it has nothing to do with the progression of radio wave technology. You can't get any smaller, and that's what the progression talks about, is the size of the wave. So the 5G wave, because it's so small, it requires a cell phone, small cell, they call it a small cell phone tower. It requires a tower every 500 feet everywhere, wherever this 5G is going to exist. So that means right outside your bedroom window. That means right outside your kid's school, the playground, everywhere. And these 5G towers are said to emit 1,000 times more radiation than the current 4G towers. Why does it emit so much radiation? Well, it's got to emit a lot of energy to push such a small wave, and it still can only push that small wave a short distance because it's so small, and it absorbs into everything that it comes into contact with. So this 5G cell phones and the 5G Internet of Things, like your toaster oven and your smart TV and your baby diapers and your refrigerator, they're all going to propagate this 1 millimeter size wave. That means constant monitoring of everything that you do. That means actually it's like being inside of an airport body scanner 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. So I'm creating a clothing line to prevent accumulation of this deadly radiation, and hopefully we can have a generation of people who can procreate, because it's this depopulation agenda. A child conceived, born, and raised in a 5G environment will not be able to procreate. It is a depopulation, very evil agenda. So I'm creating maternity wear, baby blankets, baby clothing, T-shirts, men's underwear, hats, cell phone cases. I'm launching all these different items. I've got hats right now that are very effective, especially with people who have EMF sensitivities. All on my website, sparrowprotectionclothing.com. That's SPERO, Protection Clothing. Sparrow is the brand. It's a Latin word for hope, because the catchphrase is, wherever there's hope, there's always a silver lining. And all of the garments, all of the apparel are lined with this silver technology that has actually been utilized in Israel, Korea, China, and Japan for decades to protect their children and pregnant women and men's underwear, all these different items. They use the silver material, which deflects. It acts as an armor. It deflects radiation from current and future technologies of these radio waves. So by easily understanding what a radio wave is, then we can segue into understanding what blue light is and why blue light is bad and harmful, and how we can very easily mitigate our impacts from blue light and EMF and all this stuff. So the size of these waves, of these light, really, really matter, because as the size of the waves approach the light that we're used to, like sunlight, if our bodies think that it's sunlight, even though it's not visual light that we can see, it's still light. And if our bodies think that it's sunlight, our bodies can get very easily confused. And what we have is this thing called a circadian rhythm. It's our biological clock. And our biological clock is very sensitive, and it's set to the sky clock. Our body knows when the sun goes up, when the sun goes down. Our body knows when it's 11:55 p.m. And at these exact certain moments throughout the day, while we're sleeping, while we're awake, at 1:22 a.m., at these certain times, different chemicals are processed: cortisol, dopamine precursors, melatonin, serotonin, dopamine, all these things. It's very important for our biological clock to be in tune, and it's set to the Schumann's resonance, which is 7.83 hertz. So there's this certain tune to which our body is set to this clock called the circadian rhythm. It's very important that it's tuned perfectly, or our bodies will get disrupted and we won't be producing certain chemicals like melatonin, serotonin, things that make us happy and whatnot. And even our endocrine system, our hormonal system, is all set to this clock. So I'll pass it on in just a moment, but this is very important information. So we've got complex fluorescence, these CFL light bulbs. We've also got LED light bulbs. These are actually very toxic, very problematic. The CFL twirly light bulbs, they're actually full of mercury, they're very poisonous, and they flicker on and off at a rate of about 10,000 times per second. So the reason why they're energy efficient is because they're basically off 10,000 times per second. But in doing so, they disrupt our bodies. They flash on and off. They actually put us in a trance, and they emit blue light. So especially LED lights, and these LED street lamps are actually very predatory in my opinion. We need to get these blackout curtains so that these LED blue light diode emitting street lamps aren't leaking all this blue light into our bedrooms while we're trying to sleep, because even though we don't see that it's this bright blue light, it's basically like this. Ultraviolet light is not this bright purple light that we can see. It does cause harm. It burns our skin and can burn our eyes. It comes off the sun, and our bodies know, that the sun is up because of this ultraviolet light. It's not this bright purple light, but we just can't see it. It's there. We can't see it. Just like blue light. It's not going to be this bright blue light coming off of the street lamps. We don't see all of the blue light, but there's a lot of blue light there, and our bodies confuse it as sunlight because blue is so close to ultraviolet. So these blue light emitting diodes coming off of these LED lamps, LED street lamps, all these things, the disruption from the blue light is especially worse at night, because then your bodies think that it's daytime again, right? So our bodies are set to this clock, the circadian rhythm, this clock, and it's important for our bodies to know when the sun sets, and then our bodies start to get ready to produce different chemicals that are only produced at night, like serotonin and melatonin and whatnot. So if you're, for instance, staring at your computer screen at night, the computer screens, the tablets, the smartphones, they also emit a lot of blue light. You can get a blue light filter. There's all sorts of apps, and this is a very good way of learning about how disruptive blue light can be and how you can actually help yourself from getting good night's sleep and also preventing yourself from being depressed and whatnot. There's a reason why teen suicide is going through the roof, and I'm going to get there. So the blue light coming off of your screens from your tablets, from your smartphones and all that, it disrupts your biological clock, and it basically tells your body that it's noon, that the sun is out, that it's bright. And then if your body thinks that it's noon, in like 5 hours, it's going to be 5 p.m. It's not going to be late at night when your body creates these different chemicals. So your body won't create these late night chemicals. It'll always be thinking that it's daytime because you're staring at the blue light right before bed, and then you get up and you're in sunlight in the morning, and your body will never get to that point where it's 2 a.m. and it's time to produce melatonin and serotonin, certain things that are produced in the middle of the night, such as things that make you happy, like dopamine and serotonin and melatonin. So there was a National Institute of Health research study. Very, very important. If you can grasp this research study, you can understand why 5G is especially bad, why EMF radiation is bad, why you shouldn't have your Wi-Fi router in your bedroom and on at night, why you should turn your phone on airplane mode at night and get that EMF radiation out of your bedroom at night, and not have blue light at night especially, and learn about this for your children and your family and your peers. It's also important to keep your circadian clock going and in tune. So the National Institute of Health did a research study, and what was the phenomenon that it was studying was a statistical anomaly, a very high level of suicide amongst utility workers that were installing and working on cell phone towers, okay, 4G, 5G, 3G cell phone towers. So at any time of the day, these cell phone utility workers, 8 a.m., 8 p.m., they were going and working on these towers, but because the radiation coming off of these towers was so strong and the waves coming off were so small, the bodies of these utility workers, their bodies were thinking they were in bright, bright light. They had no other way to compute this. Our bodies have never, our ancestry has never been in this kind of radiation. Blue light, EMF, 5G, none of it. And all of it confuses our body and makes our bodies think that we're in bright sunlight. So the National Institute of Health did a random sample study of utility workers across the United States that worked on cell towers. They studied them for a short duration of this case study, and in this very short time frame of this random sample study, these random, and they didn't know they were part of a study, they were just being randomly observed, 10% of this random case study committed suicide. Very, very high. To give you a perspective, the suicide in the United States, the rate is like 0.01%. So about 1,000 times more higher. We've got 10%, and 10% of this random case study was not only depressed, but they were so depressed that they were committing suicide. And then these people were studied, and it came to be concluded by this National Institute of Health, the NIH, research study that these utility workers, their biological circadian rhythms, their biological clocks were being so thrown off, their bodies were not creating enough melatonin, serotonin, dopamine for them to stay happy enough to stay alive. So they were committing suicide. And it's just like that for blue light. If you keep looking at the blue light at night before bed, you keep throwing your clock off, and you don't have enough happy juices, and slowly but surely you will experience repercussions. It might not come in the form of depression. It might come in the form of hormonal imbalance or leukemia, or you never know what. But ultimately, it's very important to keep your clock in check and learn about this. And then in doing so, you can find a simple way to expose these important facts to your friends and your peers and your coworkers and all these things, because just getting blackout curtains because you have an LED out front of your window and all of a sudden you're not depressed, it's very much insightful and inspiring and empowering to just know how simple the truth really can be. I have an app on my computer called FLUX, and it just filters the blue light whenever I have it on. I turn it on all the time, but it actually has a clock. And when the sun goes down, it says we're turning on your blue light filter now, and the tint of the light coming off my computer gets more orange or yellow and less blue. So just that alone is a nice segue into learning how easy the truth really is, though it's shrouded with so much misinformation, and really we should have learned all this in first grade. Hello?
Well, Matt, that is just absolutely wonderful information you're sharing with everybody. We have about just over half an hour left. Would you like to open it up to have people ask you questions?
Yeah, I'd love hearing from people. That would be great.
Unless is there anything else you want to go talk about before we open up the lines for everybody?
Well, I just want everyone to know that it's very easy to make rain. We can make rain on forest fires. We can make rain on drought-stricken regions. The technology is very much there. It doesn't even necessitate a cloud, which is just amazing. So all of this agenda of forest fires, when there's forest fires, there actually tends to be exacerbated, geoengineered, climate-engineered wind storms on top of these fires, which drastically make these fires grow and exacerbate them and even destroy towns. Now, the technology is there to not only quell these winds, but make rain on top of these fires. So the entire conversation, again, when we're having these conversations about global warming, about geoengineering, and the obvious elephant in the room is not even being discussed, we cannot have a discussion of forest fires in California or across the world or losing the power outages because of these winds. The conversation shouldn't even be had without watching the film Frankenskies or being an informed individual and knowing the control that is able to be had and likely is being had behind the scenes regarding the weather. And in that light, please, if you can share that I'm making a new movie, Frankenskies 2. I just bought the web domain for frankenskies2.com. That won't be up for a little while, but I am getting the pre-production together and getting the scheduling. I'm going to be interviewing different firefighters and farmers and activists and really getting this honed in. And I hope that it'll be even better than Frankenskies, the first movie, which you can see online for free at frankenskiesthemovie.com. But please, if you can support financially or if you can just share or just spread the word any way you can, I have this GoFundMe that I've just recently launched, this crowdfund. It's at www.gofundme.com/Frankenskies2. That's FRANKENSKIES 2. Any help, any love, greatly appreciated. I really want to get this movie out as soon as possible, and I'm doing all I can with the EMF protection clothing line and the 3 websites and going on all the shows and making the conferences and making the next movie. I wish I could finance it on my own, but I can't. But all the information in the upcoming film is so critical and important because of especially the dimming of our sun and the fires agenda. Everyone needs to know the truth. And I'm looking forward to answering any questions from callers.